Do you believe a South African farmer shot and maybe even hit a UFO in the early 1970s? This is the story of Bennie Smit and the Fort Beaufort UFO incident. There are different versions of what happened during that time. I'm going to give you two of them. Credit to Kandinsky at Above Top Secret and the EGGSA Facebook page for these pictures and newspaper clippings. Allegedly, on June 26, 1972, at or about 9 a.m., a South African farmer named Bernardus Bennie Smit was heading to work on his Braeside farm in the Eastern Cape near Fort Beaufort. When he arrived, he could not find any of his laborers. He saw smoke at another camp. He thought that maybe they did not understand his directions, got lost, and made a fire to keep warm. He arrived at the camp and saw his laborers cowering and huddled up in the shed. Smit then claims to have seen a UFO in the sky and quickly rushed home to get his .303 rifle, told someone to call the police, and rushed back. The craft was described as egg-shaped, metallic, and in the appearance of a 44-gallon drum. Retired Fort Beaufort Police Commander Peter Van Rensburg said he was skeptical when Sergeant Pete Kitchen ran into his office claiming that there was a UFO on a farm outside of town. It took some convincing, but Van Rensburg eventually went with Kitchen to see what all the commotion was about. As the policemen arrived on the scene, they were greeted by one of the laborers. Suddenly, shots rang out. Smit emerged from the bush, sweating profusely. Everyone now saw the craft. Smit handed his .303 to Kitchen and he began firing at the UFO. Smit got within a few meters of the craft, but it took off. Another slightly different version of the story claims that one of the laborers, board the clerk, alerted Smith to the craft after noticing a red light and a glowing object just out of sight. Smit took a shot with his .303 and had his laborers go in the bush to try to drive out the craft. Together, they all fired 15 shots at the UFO. The 8th shot hit the craft, which caused it to make a thudding noise. The craft's color went from red to yellow. Smit hit the craft again and the color became slightly dark gray. It eventually disappeared. Here are quotes from the star witnesses and participants, Smit and Van Rensburg. Van Rensburg said, "After both Mr. Smit and Sergeant Kitchen had fired a couple shots, we saw a round black shiny object emerge from behind the trees. It could have been metal, although it changed from black to red and then to yellow." Bennie Smit said, "The 8th shot seemed to hit it, as a thud was heard." Van Rensburg said, "The UFO was not a kind of fireball. It was clearly a dark, shiny object in the center of a surrounding glow." Smit says, "Boer, who saw it first, said it was about 1/4 meters in length, but others judged it to be anything from 3/4 meters to 2 meters. Van Rensburg said, "Mr. Smit is a sensible and mature person." Smit says, "As the object disappeared downwards, I fired at the star. I'm considered a pretty good shot, and the object no longer changed colors once the star had been hit. It remained a mere darkish gunmetal body." A few days later, on July 8, Smit was awoken by sounds of explosions. He discovered his farm dam had shattered. Did the UFO spin and get some get back? Did the aliens really get revenge on Smit for shooting one of the craft? Shortly after the sightings, an army delegation from Grahamstown arrived at the location and sealed it off for 2 days. The witnesses believed there was a military cover-up of the incident. Van Rensburg claimed that he was told to take samples and send them to Pretoria. Even though he had no idea what to do, he dug out sods from where the ship landed and did what he was told. He offered to accompany the samples to Pretoria, but was refused and was told to send them by train. In typical government and military fashion, the samples never got there. And of course, all the military officers who were at the scene in 1972 were retired and all the files were destroyed. It seems like every time the military gets involved, there's some type of cover up or some type of secret activity going on. I mean, we might never know what actually happened that day. So here's a clipping from a newspaper from NICAP, which is the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. It reads as follows. UFO shot at in South Africa. Police order news blackout. Citizens of Fort Beaufort, South Africa, are getting jittery about flying saucers. At least that is the conclusion evidenced by recent newspaper clippings detailing a variety of strange UFO sightings and incidents which apparently occurred in late June and early July. Although many of the reports are fragmentary, it appears that on at least one occasion in late June, a farmer from Fort Beaufort and the local police opened fire with rifles on a UFO with lights. Attempts by a local newspaper to cover the alleged shooting were subsequently hampered by a police clampdown on information regarding the incident. According to one news account, police instructed Mr. and Mrs. Bennie Smit, owners of Braesar Farm at Beaufort, not to give any more information about the UFO or allow anyone on the farm. Despite the clampdown, one newspaper reported that Mr. Smit claims a UFO he observed sometime after shooting destroyed a large brick reservoir located on his property. Smith said he observed the UFO on July 8, shortly before two explosions rocked his farm. Investigating, he reportedly found large chunks of masonry scattered about the reservoir site and the structure itself totally destroyed. According to the clippings received by NICAP, there appears to have been a rash of sightings near Fort Beaufort and Port Elizabeth shortly after this incident. Many of the sightings reported are apparently the result of an over-imaginative public reacting to the stories of the shooting. Other sightings, however, appear to have occurred near the farm on previous occasions and have become subject of much local interest. So you guys tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think this actually happened? Do you think Mr. Smith and some of the officers were trying to cash out on this and maybe hoax the incident? Do you really think a farmer in 1970 South Africa really shot and hit a UFO? Like I said, let me know in the comments. And I'm going to leave the video with this quote. I thought it was pretty cool. It goes as follows. I know of no law which forbids you to shoot at an invader from outer space, said the Deputy Commissioner of Police.